Okay, Wonder World, how the fuck are you guys today? Coming in hot before I get on the plane. About to take off to Philadelphia for a conference with Liz, but just popping in for our 100 Wonderful Ways today to break down for you what it really takes to run multi-six-figure virtual events. Let's give you some behind the scenes to help you to, of course, make more money and close more clients because I know that you joined a Facebook group called Unicorn Client Attraction Secrets because bitch, you want more clients, right? So just say hey when you're popping on and let's dive into the behind the scenes because I think that people kind of simplify this down a little bit too much. I've definitely seen coaches just kind of run through this very surface level way of breaking this down and saying, yeah, you can absolutely just throw an event and you'll make millions of dollars. That's not how this works. There's so many different moving pieces to this, and I want you to understand what it really takes so that you're setting yourself up for success but also so that you're managing your frequency and your level of expectation when it comes to throwing an event. Because a lot of people think like, oh, I can just throw an event, just like a Wonder Retreat, just like Nicole, and I'll throw an event and I'll make $100,000 too. Yes, you will if you have these pieces in place. So let's really talk about what you need in order to be successful. So first and foremost, we like to get all of those eyes on your motherfucking offers. We're zooming in right now in front of 34,000 fucking people. So go ahead, tell us a little bit about what you do in the comments. We want to know those results. We want to know who you best serve. And I would love to know if you want to throw a fucking virtual event. Let's kind of start there, right? Have you done this before? How did it go for you? Do you want to throw virtual events? Is this something that is appealing to you? Because it's not appealing to everybody, okay? Some people really prefer the evergreen path and they would rather just kind of have that thing set up where it's like people are just kind of closing on autopilot. Maybe they're doing a two-call close kind of situation. Maybe they're selling low ticket into an ascension, right? And so they don't really want to do these wide scale events. And that's totally okay, right? There's no right or wrong way to do this. That's the whole thing about entrepreneurship, right? Is that you get to do it your way. That's why we call it a YOU unicorn sales funnel, because you get to play to your strengths. One of my strengths is events. And you want to know why? Because I've been throwing events for well over a decade, in person, real live events, because I worked for million and billion dollar companies back in bartender land. And of course, in bar world, events are a big deal, right? This is something that we do pretty frequently. And it's something that you have to be pretty well versed in if you're running a bar in order to be long-term successful, because we have a different kind of range of event. You have like a small event, which is just like, maybe a repetitive whiskey Wednesday. Every Wednesday you have some sort of special, and so you have to promote it, get people there, drive your profit margins, make good choices when it comes to your product placements, and of course train your staff, and keep people entertained for weeks and weeks and weeks and create that regular kind of vibe, right? And then you have these big wide scale events, and so maybe this is like a New Year's Eve party, right? Or a launch of a new product. So there's going to be this gradient, right? And because I was the president of the Bartenders Guild for 7 years, I threw a lot of events. We did an event every single month just for the Bartenders Guild alone. Plus, at the time, I was running three separate bars. So that meant that I was probably throwing on average between 7 to 10 events every single month. Okay. So I know a lot about events. And so it shouldn't be too much of a surprise that when I came into the online market, that this, of course, was the thing that put me on the map. Wonder Retreats were, my kind of brainchild that I came up with because I went to an in-person event, or a virtual event. I went to a virtual event and I was like, this shit sucks. Like, it was seriously the most boring shit I've ever fucking seen in my life. It was just straight like 8 hours of summits. And it was just so boring. Like, I don't know. Have you guys ever been to like boring ass fucking summits? Like, I was just sitting there, like, I was like, I cannot, like, I was asked to speak at it and I was super excited because I was like, my first like speaking gig in coaching land. And I was like, my business was like 3 months old. And I was like, this is a big fucking deal, right? And I was so stoked to go and speak. And then, but I didn't realize how fucking shitty and how fucking boring and how redundant all this crap was because the speaker lineup is just, 8 hours back to back, and people just sit on a Zoom. Everyone kind of turns their camera off and chills or whatever, and like pretends to listen, probably gets absolutely nothing out of this, and listens to people do the exact same presentation, the same formula over and over again. They put their fucking PowerPoint slides up, and they tell you some fucking hook line at the beginning and tell you you're not going to get your treat until the end, and you have to stay till the end of the presentation to get your treat. And then they tell you some sob story about, how they their dog died and that's why they became who they are. And then they give you, three points of like lesson that are three basic bitch things that you probably already fucking knew. And then they spend the rest of the presentation pitching, and you're like clawing your eyes out on the screen because it's seriously the most dull and like exhaustingly fucking boring bullshit that we've ever seen, right? And that's exactly what happened. And I was like, this is fucking dumb. Like, I'm not doing this again. And I don't really speak at other people's summits. I don't do that shit anymore, because I don't think they're effective. I mean, I know they're not fucking effective because I watch those people after the summits make no money, right? Like, if you come and you ask me, like, sure, I'm happy to send something over for you, but I don't expect to get clients from it. I don't expect you to get clients from it. And I'm not going to send it out to my email list because I know it's going to suck, right? And so, I'm not big on this whole thing for virtual events. And, even the ones that are like, 5-day challenges, they're so basic and they're so repetitive. And I don't subscribe to that kind of shit because I came from a world with really exciting and activating and interesting fucking in-person events, run by million and billion dollar companies who had the credit card to swipe, swipe, swipe themselves into, very entertaining kind of situations. And so when I came into this world and I was like, okay, like how can we set this up for success? Like how can we create, this in-person experience that's going to change people's fucking life, or virtual experience that's going to change people's lives? And I was like, well, we're going to pull from the feeling of an in-person event. I mean, doesn't that just make more sense rather than just like sitting on a Zoom screen and fucking melting for 8 fucking hours? Fuck all that noise. And so that's exactly what we did. That's exactly what the fuck we set up in a wonder retreat. And I was thinking to myself, like, how am I going to bring this experience to life? Like, how am I going to get out of the Zoom screen, pull you in here, right? And create the feeling that you jumped into a painting and that we're all here together. How are we going to create camaraderie? How are we going to create something that's memorable? How are we going to make it so that we ruin you for all other fucking coaches? And that's exactly what we did with Wonder Retreats. So these are the key ingredients that you need in order to do this. And, we throw, multi 6 figure events all the fucking time. It's very normal inside of Wonder World. But the key ingredients that you need in order to be able to do this successfully is number one, you need a well-positioned offer for this event. And this is a step that everybody fucking absolutely skips. And they're just like, well, I'm just going to throw an event. And they get really excited about the theme, but they don't think about what the promise is, right? They don't think about why would anybody come to this. Just because you have a really cool theme, that's not enough for people to stop what they're doing today and come and sit on a fucking Zoom screen with you maybe for 5 days. That's not enough. Just having a good theme is not going to fucking do it, okay? You've got to think about why would somebody stop everything else in their life today to come to this thing. And then you've also got to think about how that creates natural ascension into your signature offer, because that's a mistake that a lot of people make too, is that they will promise the same promise as their signature offer. Okay. That's like, I teach you how to get 5-figure months that turn into 5-figure days. Okay. If I did an event that was like 5-figure months that turn into 5-figure days, then why the fuck would you buy nonstop at the end? Well, number one, you're not going to be able to learn everything that you need to know to create 5-figure months that turn into 5-figure days. You're not going to learn that in a 5-day fucking challenge. You're just not. Okay, like it's too many different things. You're not going to be able to get your head around it. You're not going to be able to take action. You're not going to be able to fucking implement. So therefore, you're not going to get the fucking result. So now I've just lied to you, and now I want you to buy my thing at the end. That doesn't make any sense. And that was what I discovered when I went to these 5-day challenges, is that they were promising. The first one I went to that was a 5-day challenge was like the promise was like get clients, and I was like, I'm gonna go check this shit out. My business is probably like 5 months old or so, and it was this guy, okay, and he opened a pop-up Facebook group. He put a whole bunch of people into it, which I found out later was kind of not exactly accurate, right? There was some very inconvenient smoke and mirrors, but like I got inside of there, and the whole time, like he was teaching, I mean, things that weren't going to help you to get clients. And then at the end, the offer was, I'll show you how to get clients inside of my $10,000 program. And I'm like, I thought that I paid for the fucking challenge to learn how to get clients, right? Like, what the fuck are we doing? And so it was so irritating to have that bait and switch. And if you start your relationship with a lie, I mean, think about this in like fucking dating, right? If you start your relationship with a lie, how the fuck is that going to go for you? I mean, you're always going to have that hanging over your head, right? You're always going to have that thing between you. And so, like, why would any coach or any service provider want to start a relationship with a client off with a lie? I'm not going to do that. So I'm not going to promise you that you're going to make 5-figure months that turn into 5-figure days at a goddamn fucking retreat, because I can't ethically promise that. And in addition to that, it cannibalizes my fucking offer. Why the fuck would I do that? So you need to have a well-positioned offer that is like super sexy, super juicy, the things that people absolutely want. Remember that people buy what they want, right? Not what they need. And so you need to be able to sell something that they want that naturally ascends into your signature offer without cannibalizing it. And that's really fucking important. Okay. So you have to start with a very solid offer. If you don't start with a solid offer, I promise you, none of the rest of this is going to fucking help you. Okay. So well positioned, specifically targeting into specifically who is this person for, right? Who is it for? Okay. And then what is that main result, that main desire that you're going to be giving to people that they're actually going to be able to obtain in this amount of time? What if you have a 3 day event or a 5 day event or a 21 day event? You have to make sure that they can obtain the promise and that that promise naturally creates ascension into your high ticket offers. Does this make sense, right? Are we following the bouncing ball, right? Okay, we got to make sense of all of these things. Now, once we have that well-positioned offer in place, then we have to start thinking about the client experience. Okay. What's it going to feel like for them every single step of the way? And that is why you need to run a show. You need to have a run a show that details, I mean, literally down to the fucking 15 minute. Okay. Like exactly what the fuck is happening at every single step of the way and how the client is feeling every step of the way. And if they're feeling good the whole time, you miss the mark. Okay. That's not how events work. Events need a story arc, right? Have you ever read a book that was like once upon a time they lived happily ever after? Fuck no, you haven't, right? Have you ever watched a movie that was once upon a time they fell in love and then they had a good life? Nope. Because that's not fucking entertaining, okay? You need entertainment. Infotainment is where we are in the wave of the motherfucking future. Infotainment's where it's at. So you've got to think about that fucking arc that you're creating for people where there's going to be some trials and some tribulations, right? To create the triumph of this result. People must be entertained, right? Are you not fucking entertained? They have to be feeling a feeling, and that feeling can't be the same feeling the entire time. And that's why you need a run of show, okay? Because the run of show is going to help you to build out the story arc and get the behind the scenes feelings. And you're going to be thinking about, how do I create that experience? Right? How do I generate that experience? How do I do something that nobody else has ever done? How do I peel back the fucking curtain and help people to be absolutely enthralled with this? Have you ever done that? Have you ever gone to an event that's been absolutely fucking fantastic? What was the feeling? Like, think back to that. Think back to that event, whether it was in person or virtual. Think back to maybe it was a concert, right? Maybe it was a fucking ballet. You've been to an event that made you feel the feeling and it made it memorable, right? It wasn't the fact that it was like, oh, hyper logical that made you feel a feeling. Of course not, right? It's not the value that you bring to the event where it's like, I'm going to give them so much value. That's not it. Okay. Value doesn't generate multi six figure fucking launches. It just doesn't. It's not about value. It's about emotion. People buy with feelings. And if you can't take them through that story arc and help them to feel their feelings of trial and tribulation and triumph, they're not going to buy. And so the entire event is designed around feeling the feelings of the story and the flow of that story. And you've got to be able to paint that picture. You've got to be able to pull people in. You've got to get people to melt that fucking Zoom screen when we're working on this during this event. It has to feel real. And that is, easier said than done. It really is. Because, we sit on a Zoom screen and we, assume that everybody in the room is just paying attention and doing what we say, but that's not really actually true. You've got to get people off of their ass. You've got to get people involved in what you're talking about. You got to get them participating in the chat. You got to get them talking to each other. There's a whole different group dynamic that happens behind the scenes, and you got to learn how to manage and mitigate that. I'll tell you a story. It's not a good one. In one of my first Wonder retreats, we had this idea that we were like, hey, we're going to have teams. And it was really fun, right? Because it was like healthy competition. Everyone's going to compete against each other. And so we let the teams, because they suggested it, somebody was like, hey, can we start messenger threads with our team? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Have fun. Have a great day, right? Like, you guys are awesome. I was so excited for them. And so they started up these messenger threads that we were not involved in, like the team was not involved in, and they just did it on their own, right? Well, that's not allowed inside of Wonder Retreats anymore, but they started up this messenger thread, and it got so crazy in there. Like, I don't even know what happened because I wasn't in there, but I got a message from one of my existing clients, and she's like, you need to stop this right now. You need to figure out what's going on. There was a woman in there who was literally threatening to kill herself. And so like I ended up staying up, like she was in a different country and I ended up staying up with her all night because at the time I had no boundaries and I had no idea what the fuck to do. But I stayed up all night with her, fucking talking to her and like trying to fucking do all the things. I ended up calling one of my friends who's a licensed therapist and I was like, I don't know what to do. And she's like, I'll get you the number for the country for, reporting because this woman was serious. It wasn't like it was very real. And like I was very afraid. And so like I ended up calling the authorities in that country to do a wellness check for her. Um, because I mean, it was just nuts, right? Like, I never could have anticipated something like that happening because I didn't really think about that whole thing of like, what would happen if I wasn't controlling a piece of the environment, right? What would happen in the sidebar of this? I just didn't cross my mind that I needed to even consider that. But you do. You have to think about every parameter of your event, just like you would at an in-person event. And I mean, at a bar event, I absolutely think of those things, right? We have security. We have security on site. We have the bartenders trained and looking for problematic customers that may be harassing other guests or, putting fucking roofies in people's drinks. We think about all of those things in an in-person event, but at a virtual event, like the danger of things is a little bit different and you have to like understand that. And back then I didn't. I had to learn those lessons. And I did learn them very quickly. And now we don't allow any unsanctioned events outside of ours that will have our brand name on anything because there's no possible way we can provide a great experience for our clients if we don't incorporate, our personal touch on this, right? And so these are things that you've got to like really consider and really look at throughout this process. And it's very interesting how people have different reactions to exactly the same content. And you just don't know how people are going to feel. You don't know how people are going to react. And so these are the things that you want to hone over time and really create something special, but you want to make sure that you're really thinking about every step of the way and you're creating what we call dangerous environments in safety frequency, right? Because we do want people to be challenged. Challenges are opportunities. There's a reason why they call them 5-day challenges. I don't really do 5-day challenges. That's not a thing for us, but like 5-day challenges are obviously very popular. Why are they popular? Because challenges are opportunities. And so if you're going into a 5-day challenge and you're expecting it to be easy, I think you missed part of the title. It's supposed to be hard. And so depending on what it is that you sell, you're going to intentionally put challenges into your event, right? It's going to be something where maybe people have to work together, or maybe they have to solve a problem, or maybe they have to learn something that they've never learned before, right? Maybe they have to shift their mindset to become the next version of themselves. You need to think about what is that adventure that you're sending people on, and you need to ensure that that adventure is safe. You need to ensure that that adventure is well planned out. You need to look at the adventure from a couple different angles, and you need to be prepared to reflect and refine when you fucking miss something, because you absolutely will in the beginning. Okay, so we think about that client experience and we're taking them through that story arc, helping them to get into an emotional state so that they are creating those results, that memorable experience, that lasting impression, so that what, right? Of course, so that they buy. And so of course that they want more. If you don't do a good enough job creating that juiciness and getting people to want more, then of course they're not going to fucking buy. And this is one of the biggest mistakes that I see in virtual events, is that people don't know how to control that threshold. They don't know how to do what's called an open loop. Okay. An open loop is where we give somebody exactly what the fuck we said we were going to give them, right? We provide that result that they paid for, but that result creates two new problems. And those two new problems are solved by your ascension offer. And when you don't know how to effectively use open loops inside of events, you do a whole lot of work, right? You fucking blood, sweat, and tear. You put this fucking amazing experience together, and then nobody buys your ascension offer. And so if you did a free event, now you're out all the time and the money and you've made nothing. And if you do a ticketed event, well, maybe you'll break even, but ultimately you won't get that ascension on the back end because either you cannibalized with the piss poor offer, or because you didn't understand how to create intrinsic open loops. And there's many layers of how you need to do this, right? You need to have the inception open loops. You need to have the transparency open loops. You need to have open loops within the open loops in order to create the conversions. If you don't do this, you will not convert, right? So these are things that you have to understand: the sales strategy, not just how to market and fill the room. That's not good enough. The marketing and filling the room is a very important step, because if you don't fill the room, well, then you got fucking nothing, right? But if you do fill the room and you don't understand sales strategies, well, you're going to do a whole lot of work for nothing. And then you're going to be super disappointed. And you're going to tell yourself all these bullshit ass stories of like, oh, I'm not good at this. And like, I should never do events again. When really you were probably just missing one or two really key, very important parts of how to successfully run events. And most of the times, the mistake I see most frequently is that people don't know how to do open loops, right? So this is a key skill set that you have to be able to incorporate. The other thing is that, of course, you need an audience. You need an audience to sell this event to. And people are always so surprised by that, which is surprising to me, right? And they're like, oh, I'm gonna throw an event. And I'm like, great, that's awesome. So tell me a little bit about your audience. And they're like, well, I have 100 people in my Facebook group, and that's what I'm doing. And I'm like, okay, cool. So how many people do you want to come to your event? And they're like, 100. And I'm like, that's not how that works, right? Like literally at all. That is not how that works. Okay. So I want to remind you guys that 1% of your total audience converts. And so we need to have reasonable expectations for this. And the fact of the matter is that you should be starting with smaller scale events. Okay. Don't go at that level where you're like, I'm gonna throw a 5-day challenge. I'm gonna throw a fucking wonder retreat. Like, I'm gonna do this big giant fucking thing when I've never done an event ever in my life and I don't know how to pitch. I have no idea how to fucking drive traffic. I have no idea how to do open loops. I know nothing about sales cycles. I don't know how to create a story arc. And I'm just gonna go fucking balls to the wall. It's like, well, that's a self-sabotage pattern because intrinsically that's not gonna work, right? It's not gonna work, and yet you're gonna do it anyways. And then you're gonna get upset, right? And you're like, oh, well, I did all this stuff, and I tried, I did the strategy, but it didn't work. And it's like, right, but you didn't have the skill sets under your belt in order to be successful in the first place. So that's just sabotage. I highly recommend that you start with tiny little rooms, okay? Tiny little events. We call them pony parties in the Wonder World, right? Is to start with something that is very manageable. And I want you to think about, how can I put 10 people in this room? Okay, how can just 10, not 100, just 10. Okay, how can I put 10 people onto a Zoom and create a 30% conversion line? Okay, when you can do that, when you can put 10 people in there, you can do a masterclass, right? They can go through, they can have this incredible experience. You can take them through that story arc. You get to practice your open loops. You don't have the big giant pressure of an event, but when you can take them through a pony party masterclass, you can do a really cool and fun theme for it, and you can create a 30% conversion line on the back end. That's when you're ready to start creating bigger events, right? That's when things are really starting to work for you. And it's going to wax on, wax off, teach you those soft skills that you need in order to be really effective at this. Okay. So once we have that audience of 100 people in a group, that's fantastic. 100 people in a group, you can put 10 of those people into a Zoom masterclass, private little masterclass, where you can teach them one topic, give them that incredible offer that you've got in your back pocket, and close 3 of those 10 people and make 15K because you got a 5K offer, or make 30K because you got a fucking 10K offer. That is fucking fantastic. Do that, right? Rather than thinking about this big giant production and all the shit you need to do and these million moving pieces, just start with a pony party. Okay. Like, that's what's going to help you. That's what's going to help you to build the confidence. And also, that's what's going to create revenue, right? Is like, we don't need to do this big giant event in order to be successful. And I think that a lot of people bite off more than they can chew. And then they're surprised and hurt when it doesn't work. But honestly, they didn't have the skill sets. I did tons of pony parties before I did my first Wonder Retreat. I built this up for myself, right? Where I practiced with first hour-long masterclasses that turned into 90-minute masterclasses. And then I experimented and went with 2 hours, and I found that 90 minutes is pretty much the sweet spot. It's pretty much as people can stand, right? It's like 90 minutes is about all they have for the attention span. And so it's really understanding your audience and getting to know them and being able to reflect and refine on yourself as a presenter, right? You notice that I do these every single week, right? Every single week I come in here for 30 minutes. I do basically a tiny little version of a pony party, right? I come in here and I talk to you guys, and then I go over to Money Making Unicorns and I go talk to them for 30 minutes, and then I go into Unicorns Only and I talk to them for an hour. And so I have a lot of strength built up in presentation power because I do this every single week, right? And so that's something else that you can do to work your way up to being able to throw really great events, is go live. Create a live series. And I did this right in the beginning. Create a live series where you go live every fucking Tuesday, right? Pick a day of the week, pick a time, go live, and practice being able to hold the frequency for your audience. Practice your speaking ability, practice your ability to pitch, practice your ability to connect, cultivate, and convert on a weekly basis, because you're going to get so much better. And here's the fucking kicker on that. Watch that shit back, okay? Watch it back and watch where you get boring. Watch where you lose your train of thought. Watch where you forget what the fuck you're talking about. Watch where you fucking fumble when you're supposed to be fucking pitching, right? watch yourself so that you improve, because one of the key ingredients of a successful event is that you are an interesting infotainment based speaker that people actually want to fucking listen to. And that doesn't mean that you got to dance around like a goddamn idiot, but it does mean that you need to be succinct in your ability to speak. You need to practice the art of brevity. You need to practice fucking staying on point. I don't have any fucking notes in front of me. There's nothing. I'm teaching you a subject that I know inside out and fucking backwards. So I'm giving you this high level view and I'm breaking it down into sections. And the entire time I watch the time. And so I ensure it's like right now, I know that I have 4 minutes left to wrap this up. And so I'm going to give you that comprehensiveness because I've watched the bouncing ball and told you exactly what you need in order to complete successful events. I've done this many, many times before, right? So practice, 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 right? You've got to have an audience full of people who want what the fuck you sell. You need to have that monetizable audience in place. You've got to be able to drive traffic and get them into that room. Start with small rooms. Small rooms are great. You got to put them on a masterclass and you've got to be able to connect, captivate, convert, and right, ensure that you are holding their fucking attention for the full hour or 90 minutes, whatever you promised. You got to make sure that you have a rock solid fucking offer that is backed up with open loops to create natural ascension into your higher ticket program. Okay. You've got to have all of those pieces in place in order for you to be really good at events. And then you got to be able to watch them back. Okay. You got to watch them back, reflect and refine, make that shit fucking better. Okay. And then once you get confident and you feel the confidence coming and those skill sets start to build, that is when you want to start thinking about throwing a 5 day or a 3 day or something like a wonder retreat where you're really creating that higher level of involvement. Practice themes though, have fun with it. Remember that if you're not having fun and you're not entertained by this process, then they're probably not going to be entertained. You don't necessarily need to be entertained by the subject matter. I'm never entertained by the subject matter, but that's why I put cool fucking themes together to keep things fun and fucking interesting. So, of course, cornerstone thing that you're going to need in order to drive traffic to any event, whether it is a, big giant multi six-figure fucking wonder retreat that you're launching, or you're going to need, fucking 10 people in the room for your masterclass because this is your first time, you're going to need Content That Crushes. Content That Crushes is my 5 algorithm hacking pieces of content that I use to close 10 high ticket clients in my first 6 weeks. But this is the exact same strategy that we also use to fill our events with ready to invest, ready for results clients. And when you're inside of this group for just $7, you're able to grab Content That Crushes. It's a mini course. It's going to teach you these 5 algorithm hacking pieces of content. Drop a unicorn in the comments. We'll send it over to you because one of the really cool bonuses inside of Content That Crushes is that when you finish the mini course, you can go and take your Wonder Vow. When you take your Wonder Vow, that gives you permission to be able to post in this group anytime you want. So you can fill up all of your events, all of your masterclasses, all of your pony parties from this massive audience of 34,000 fucking entrepreneurs. You can fill up all of your events from there because we have a highly engaged audience. And the fact of the matter is that not everybody can post in here. And that's one of the greatest benefits to this is that only people who have done the Content That Crushes mini course, which is $7 one time, you don't have to fucking keep repeating it. You don't have to pay monthly, right? But you need to do it one time. Only those people are allowed to post in this group. And so that keeps all of our content really high quality because they've already taken the mini course, right? But also it means that we are really very fine-tuned in who is posting in here and that it's not everybody, right? So this is a better audience than all those promote yourself audience groups because here you're actually going to engage with people. And that's why we have such a better engagement engagement rate in this group. We want you to be able to contribute in that space. We want you to be able to fill up these events because we know that money in the hands of good people does good shit. So drop those unicorns and we will send over this $7 training for you. Go take your Wonder Bow, post in here, and fill up those events. Okay. And once you get in there, you're also going to be met with a little bit of a bump up offer that gives you access to Money Making Unicorns. Money Making Unicorns is where I'm heading next. Okay. It's our strategy based membership. It's just $47 a month where you get to come behind the scenes and we take these concepts that we talk about on the 100 Wonderful Ways and we break it down a little bit further. So I have some actionable steps today for you guys to help you to set up everything that you need to run successful events to get those pony parties underway so that you can start closing clients in a fun and easy environment if you're the kind of person that wants to run events. So say yes to Money Making Unicorns. We do a little prompt for you every single day to help you to take action to become a 1%er because 1%ers are the kind of people who take 1% action every single day and commit to improvement. And of course, you get the Tuesday live trainings where you can come in and ask me questions on these topics. All right, guys, get out there, do all the wonderful things, kick ass, take names. We're on our way to Philly today, so we'll be a little absentee in the group this week because Liz and I are fucking running around doing cool shit. But we will catch your bitch asses next Tuesday. Bye.